Hey, what's up? It's NBA 30 here, 30 here, talking about is Jesus Christ God? This is a rebuttal video to 1986 Flawless opening statement. So let me just begin off by saying that this is a scriptural debate upon who is Jesus Christ. Is Jesus Christ God? So by opening with your Islamic presuppositions mean absolutely nothing. We are talking about the New Testament. What does the New Testament teach? Your Isa is not the same Jesus Christ of the Bible. You have a different Jesus. How do we know? Let's look at a passage in a couple of passages. 1 Corinthians says, for if someone comes and proclaims another Jesus, so there will be different Jesuses. So if someone comes to proclaim another Jesus than the one we proclaimed, or if you receive a different spirit, so there's going to be different spirits. So, or if you receive a different spirit from the one you've received, or if you accept a different gospel from the one you've accepted, you put up with it already enough. So there's going to be a different Jesus, a different spirit, and a different gospel. In Colossians 1:6-9, the Apostle Paul warns the Galatians about abandoning the true gospel of Jesus Christ and coming under false teachers. What does he say? In Colossians 1:6, going through 1:9, I am ashamed that you are so quickly deserting him who called you in the grace of Christ and are turning to a different gospel. Not that there is another one, but there are some who trouble you and want to distort the gospel of Christ. But if we or an angel from heaven shall preach to you a gospel contrary to the one we preached, let him be accursed. As we have said before, and so now I say again, if anyone is preaching to you a gospel contrary to the one you have received, let him be accursed. Let's look at it. If an angel from heaven comes preaching a different gospel, let him be accursed. Did Muhammad receive an angel? Or did Muhammad receive a revelation from an angel proclaiming a different message? Something to ponder on there, 1986. Let's look at the words of Jesus Christ. In Mark chapter 13 and 22, there's a couple of parallels references as well too. But let's just look at this passage. Jesus says, for false Christs and false messiahs will arise and perform signs and wonders to lead astray, if possible, even the elect. So by Jesus' own standards, there will be false Jesus Christ, or false Christ. And and right here, this is what you state.
And the dead to life, making the blind see.
Talking about miracles.
Curing diseases. The major difference that Muslims and Christians have is the divinity of Jesus. And I believe that...
You say the major difference is the divinity of Jesus Christ. Well, I will say yes and no. Major differences between Islam and Christianity indeed will fall upon the crucifixion of Christ. That is the doorway. That is the gate in which we have to go through. When I came out of Islam, that's what changed my perspective. It was the crucifixion of Christ. I made videos about this already. Go back into some of my archives and look at the historical evidences for the crucifixion of Christ. Atheists and atheists across the board, historians will say that Christ died on the cross. This is historical fact. This is embedded in world history. You cannot change this fact. The problem is that Muhammad comes over 600 years later and says it never happened. You have a problem. So there's more than just the Trinity. It is the Trinity. It is the divinity. But the major thing that's going to cause major division is the crucifixion of Christ. That is that is the beginning of a wealth of eternal knowledge. So, but let's just look at some of the biblical evidences for Jesus Christ's divinity, because apparently in your introduction you're supposed to show why Jesus Christ is not God, but you didn't really present anything but a misrepresentation of who Jesus Christ is. And if you go back to some of my archives, I made videos about methods in which Muslims use to attack Christianity, and of course misrepresented scriptural passages, misunderstanding Christian doctrine is some of the methods. and diverting issues and stuff like that. I suggest you go back and watch that particular series. But what are some of the biblical references? Since you didn't mention them, let me just reiterate what are some of the biblical references. John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men, and the light shines in darkness, and darkness has not overcome it. Your very existence, 1986 Flawless, is because of Christ. Not because of Allah, it's because of Jesus Christ. And before you make your Islamic presupposition, we're not saying Jesus is the Father. So, but what about some other scriptural passages real fast? In Colossians 1:15 through 1:17, he is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation, for by him all things were created. All things were created. And John 8:58, the Jews understood what Jesus Christ says: before Abraham was, I am. Because they picked up stones to stone him for blasphemy. Read John chapter 8, verses 58 through 59. You don't stone somebody for claiming to be a prophet. You stone somebody for blasphemy for claiming to be God. That is quite clear. And you also make mention about, let me just go down, talking about Jesus Christ as Father, how he is the Father of all creation, and then you make mention of, I believe it is, and call no man your father on earth, for you have one Father who is in heaven. What is the context to Matthew 23, chapter 23, verses 8 through 10? He is not saying that that God is no father to anybody, but what the context is saying is that the context is do not call anybody rabbi, do not call no man your father, neither be called instructor. Jesus' disciples should try not to gain authority over one another as teachers and masters, since Jesus is ultimately each disciple's teachers and master. You have one teacher, one instructor, to whom the disciple is accountable. Jesus does not literally forbid us the titles teachers, doctors, or father for all time in all circumstances, but he prohibits his disciples from using these terms in a way that the Pharisees used them, in a spirit that wrongly exalted leaders and reinforced human pride. Also, what about Acts chapter 2, verse 22? I believe you misrepresented this particular doctrine, or this particular sermon in which the Apostle Peter said. Let's read it in its context. Men of Israel, hear these words. Jesus of Nazareth, a man attested by God, with many works and wonders and signs that God did through him in your midst, as you yourselves knows. Now here's where this verse is going to refute your position if you just look at it, the next verse. This Jesus, delivered up according to the definite plan and foreknowledge of God, was crucified and was killed by the hands of lawless men. That itself refutes your claim. God raised him up, loosing the pangs of death, because it was not possible for him to be held by it. That itself refutes you. So let me just end this right here and make another video presenting the case why Christ is not God, because this is taking candy from a baby. It really is. Take care. God bless.